In 2014, Derek and Maria Broaddus bought their dream home in Westfield, New Jersey, a picturesque suburban town. But their joy turned to terror when they began receiving letters from someone calling themselves the Watcher. The first letter arrived just 3 days after closing on the house. In the letter, the anonymous writer claimed to be the latest in a long line of watchers assigned to keep an eye on the house. The Watcher made several cryptic references to the family's children, asking, have they found out what's in the walls yet? And who has the rooms facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in. More letters arrived, with increasingly threatening messages, some referring to specific details about the Broaddus family's comings and goings, suggesting they were being watched closely. I am pleased to know your names now, and the name of the young blood you have brought to me. One letter read, a chilling reference to their young children. Despite numerous investigations, including private detectives, police, and even the FBI, no one could determine the identity of the Watcher. Terrified, the Broaddus family eventually abandoned their plans to move in, renting the house instead. They sued the previous owners for not disclosing similar letters they had received before the sale, but the case was dismissed. The house was finally sold in 2019, though at a significant loss, and the mystery of the Watcher remains unsolved to this day. One of the most enduring, unsolved mysteries of the 20th century, the Dyatlov Pass incident has fascinated and terrified people for decades. In February 1959, 9 experienced hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, embarked on a challenging trek through the Ural Mountains in Russia. The group was expected to return after a few weeks, but they never did. A search party was sent out, and what they discovered shocked the world. The group's tent was found first, torn open from the inside. Their belongings were left behind, and footprints leading away from the tent suggested the hikers had fled in a hurry, barefoot and inadequately dressed for the sub-zero temperatures. The bodies were found in various locations, some as far as a mile from the tent. The first bodies were those of the hikers who seemed to have died from hypothermia, but further examination revealed a far more sinister story. 2 of the hikers had severe internal injuries, described as being equivalent to a car crash's impact, yet their skin showed no external trauma. One of the women was missing her tongue, and radiation was found on several pieces of their clothing. Investigators were baffled. The official conclusion was that the group died due to an unknown compelling force, but no one could agree on what that force was. Over the years, many theories have been proposed: military experiments, secret weapons testing, avalanches, UFOs, and even supernatural entities. Yet, the case remains unresolved, and the exact cause of the hikers' deaths is still a chilling mystery. In 1922, the isolated Gruber family farm in rural Bavaria became the site of one of Germany's most horrifying unsolved crimes. Andreas Gruber, his wife, daughter, grandchildren, and their new maid were found brutally murdered. The most disturbing aspect of the Hinterkaifeck murders is that the killer likely lived in the house with the bodies for several days before fleeing the scene. The killer lured members of the family one by one into the barn and bludgeoned them to death with a pickaxe. Afterward, the murderer entered the house and killed the maid and young Joseph, the toddler, in their beds. For days after the murders, neighbors reported seeing smoke coming from the chimney and hearing the animals being fed, leading investigators to believe the killer stayed in the house. Even before the murders, strange occurrences had been reported at the farm. Andreas Gruber had found footprints in the snow leading from the forest to the house, but none leading back. A key went missing, and strange noises were heard coming from the attic. The family was spooked, but thought little of it at the time. Despite a lengthy investigation, numerous suspects, and countless theories, no one was ever convicted for the crimes, and the case remains one of Germany's most chilling unsolved mysteries. The farmstead was demolished, but the legend of the Hinterkaifeck murders lives on, leaving behind a legacy of horror and mystery. The case of Elisa Lam is one of the most mysterious and unnerving disappearances in recent history. Elisa was a 21-year-old student from Canada, traveling through California when she stayed at the infamous Cecil Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. The hotel has a dark history, having been the home of multiple suicides, murders, and even serial killer Richard Ramirez. Elisa's behavior before her disappearance was odd. Surveillance footage from the hotel elevator shows her acting strangely, pressing multiple buttons, hiding in the corner, peeking out of the elevator, and appearing to talk to someone who wasn't there. Her erratic movements have led to widespread speculation about her mental state or the possibility of paranormal interference. Elisa went missing, and her body was found weeks later in one of the hotel's rooftop water tanks after guests complained of low water pressure and discolored water. The tanks were locked, and it's unclear how she could have gotten inside, leading to intense speculation. The autopsy ruled her death accidental due to drowning, but the circumstances surrounding her behavior, the elevator footage, and how she ended up in the tank have led to numerous conspiracy theories. Was it a mental health crisis, foul play, or something supernatural? Given the hotel's dark history, the case remains a chilling and unresolved mystery that continues to captivate the public. On the night of June 10, 1912, one of the most gruesome, unsolved murders in American history occurred in the small town of Villisca, Iowa. The Moore family, parents Josiah and Sarah, along with their 4 children, and 2 young friends who were staying the night, were all brutally murdered in their home. The killer bludgeoned them to death with an axe while they slept. The crime scene was horrific. The victims' faces were completely disfigured by the blows, and strange, ritualistic elements were found. A bowl of water with blood in it was placed next to the axe, and mirrors throughout the house were covered with cloth. Additionally, a plate of uneaten food was left on the kitchen table, and a lit lamp was placed at the foot of the bed. Despite several suspects, including a state senator and a traveling preacher, no one was ever convicted of the murders. The town was left in shock, and to this day, the house remains a source of fascination and terror. Many believe the home is haunted, and paranormal investigators have reported strange phenomena when visiting. The unsolved Villisca axe murders remain one of America's most chilling cold cases. In the quiet town of Keddie, California, in 1981, a horrifying quadruple homicide took place in Cabin 28. Glenna Sue Sharp and 3 other victims were brutally murdered in their cabin, while Sue's 2 youngest children slept unharmed in an adjacent room. The bodies of Sue, her son John, and his friend Dana Wingate were found bound with electrical tape and bludgeoned to death. Tina, Sue's 12-year-old daughter, was missing, and her remains were discovered 3 years later in a remote area. The crime scene was chaotic and gruesome. Blood was everywhere, and the victims had been beaten with hammers and stabbed repeatedly. Despite this, there was no forced entry, leading investigators to believe the killer or killers were known to the family. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged, ranging from drug-fueled violence to personal vendettas, but the case remains unsolved. New evidence emerged in 2013, suggesting police mishandling or corruption, but no arrests have been made. The mystery of who committed the Keddie Cabin murders and why still haunts the town. On Christmas Eve 1945, the Sodder family's home in Fayetteville, West Virginia, caught fire. George and Jenny Sodder, along with 4 of their 9 children, escaped the blaze. However, the other 5 children, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, were never found. The fire department, delayed due to a lack of manpower during the holiday, arrived hours later. The official cause was deemed to be faulty wiring, but the Sodders believed foul play was involved. What's chilling about the case is that no remains of the 5 missing children were ever found in the ashes. Experts stated that bones should have remained, even after the fire, but there were none. The Sodders also received cryptic letters and even photographs over the years, suggesting that the children were still alive. Numerous strange occurrences were reported leading up to and after the fire. George had been threatened by a salesman earlier that year, claiming his house would go up in smoke due to his outspoken views.